I don't know what's in that water in Orlando.
Some.
Something weird. Who knows what it is, but that could have been us. That's where I'm sort of still a little salty.
Yeah, right. It's literally the Paul George finals. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Oh,
it
6 inches.
was,
These
yeah,
ladies here are 6 inches. Are like, oh yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, way to go, Posey. Buster
Yeah.
Posey is just so God sent, and he's perfect for this role. He's generational.
But
He's the best thing.
you're drooling too much, Tim. Clean your mouth right
He's
there.
the best, Buster
Too much
Posey. Oh
drooling
my
right
God.
there. No, but all right. Welcome everybody to another episode of Banter on the Rocks. Today is Monday, June 16th. So first order of business is to discuss our brand ambassadorship. So we are brand ambassadors for Find the Good brand. Find the Good is focused on finding the good and building a community of people who want to help find the good. For all purchases, Find the Good gives back 10% to Mental Health of America organization. So when you order and use our promo code BANTER805, you will receive 10% off your purchase. Um, so that's 10% for you, 10% back to mental health. So remember to use the code BANTER805 for 10% off. The mission for Find a Good is simple. Find a Good is here to get you through the bad days, the breakups, the ups and downs, and whatever else stands between you and a smile on your face. And with a lot of stuff going around, it's time to find the good. So check out Find the Good. They got some great clothing, a lot of nice shirts, and especially with this heat starting to come around. So Find the Good
Mhm.
links. Link to their website is on our description. So check them out. Um, but on today's show, we're gonna discuss just a lot of NBA talk. Playoffs have happened. Games. I was gonna say game six, game five just occurred. So we'll give you an update on that. We're gonna talk some baseball. Big news for any Giant fans that listen. I know we got a Giant fan here, so we'll talk a little bit about what happened with the Giants and just some more baseball talk. We'll do our banter takes as always, and then we're also going to do a movie recap. We had our movie game that we did 2 shows ago, so we're going to give you guys an update of what we've seen, where we're at in the runnings to see who has the best lineup for opening weekend totals, and much more. Like I say, a lot of things come up just while we have these conversations, so um, there it's going to be a fun filled episode. So. And as always, with our show Banter on the Rocks, we always like to have our little drinks, and we're going to start with our banter drinks of the week. And today I have a nice little guava and tequila. So going back a little bit to my tequila, had some guava juice. So it's hot here. You can't tell with the hoodie, but it's been hot in Ventura County. Went to, if you know Fillmore area, hit 91 today.
Ooh,
Dang, that was crazy. So, we're feeling the heat down here. But yeah, I'll throw it to you, Tim.
that's that's toasty. Got up to a whopping 76 here today. But I will say 76 feels, it's pretty warm.
Yeah.
Went to the beach yesterday. It was kind of foggy, cleared up
Hmm.
a bit, but it was still kind of chilly. Kiddos were getting a little cold, but it was definitely relaxing. Good day to go out there. And then, shout out to my parents in Arizona. 116 today in Phoenix area.
Dang.
Yeah, a little
A
toasty out
little.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, California heat's good. If you're
Hmm.
close to the coast, it gets a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I too, I'm going with a Moscow Mule today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, nice and refreshing. It's tasty, good for the hot weather.
Yeah.
As I have pretty much every week,
Yeah.
it's just hot weather drinks these days, is what it is. But yeah, good stuff. Love
It
it.
is. It is. No, yeah, for sure. That's always a good one with this
Mhm.
weather, and it's gonna keep on heating up. We're in the summertime, so always good to find those refreshing drinks. But yeah, we'll get started with our banter takes, and we're gonna be, as always, we've been going on TikTok live doing our live streaming of our episode. So if you're listening to this, always check us out on Mondays when we record. We're gonna go on TikTok Live. Good time, get you guys to engage. But yeah, banter takes. Our banter takes are takes that we share with each other. We don't know what they are prior, and they're takes that we're gonna follow throughout the year, until it gets proven wrong. All right, so
There
we'll
he
get
is.
started with our banter takes. So my first take is the biggest problem movies are running into is a false advertising with trailers. I think this happens a lot with a lot of movies. They give you something so exciting, what it might seem like, and then it's totally different. I think the few movies I sort of would call out with this is Disney and some of their live action remakes. Because all they show you in the preview is everything that you remember from the cartoon. So Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, everything you can think of that they made live action. Every time you see the trailer, it looks like it's going to be exactly just like the animated movie. But then when you go watch the movie, there are a lot of changes to it. And, for a lot of people, it's a false advertisement. For some people, they go to it because they want to see that childhood movie that they have watched millions of times, as a kid, now as an adult with their kids. And when it's different and it's not even that great of a story, it sort of takes away from it. I think one movie I think about a lot with that is Mulan, the live action. I always enjoyed Mulan with Vera. We enjoyed watching it. We enjoyed the music. When they came out with the trailer for it, it looked really cool. It looked, we were excited for it. We're excited for the musical numbers because, that's, those are great songs for Mulan, make a man out of you. Everybody sings it. It's amazing in the video. The little sequence it has. But when you went to go watch the movie, it was totally different. They changed it completely. So, um, I think that is one of the factors of these movie trailers advertising something that it isn't, and it's unfortunate. Um, but yeah, do you have any other examples, Tim, of movie trailers?
Yeah, we'll get more into it in our movie section, but
Uh.
Materialist is certainly one. In it's been getting a lot of social media attention. I don't know if it's because I saw it and maybe I was looking up, some stuff about the
Hmm.
movie before going, but my feed is absolutely filled with people's reactions to the movie. I know you sent me a clip of a trend going on,
Yeah.
and just the trailer itself didn't quite seem to match exactly what went on in the movie altogether.
Hmm.
And, of course, the way I see it, trailers are kind of like a sales pitch in a way. Of
Yeah.
course, they're going to show, pivotal scenes, funny scenes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they kind of run into an issue where it's kind of like genre, displacement, if that's the
Hmm.
correct word for that. I don't know, unlock new words right there. And I feel like, it was kind of meant to be more of a rom-com, in my opinion. Wasn't as much comedy as it was just maybe romance side of
Yeah.
things, maybe more of a drama. And, I think I'm not alone in that thought. My wife had similar feelings about that as well.
Hmm.
But that's certainly one example this past week. And, I don't know if it's also something where they're making these trailers almost too soon before like the whole movie comes together.
Hmm.
These trailers I'm sure are pushed out pretty early and
Yeah.
just to kind of get the media attention out there ahead of time.
Hmm.
And I kind of correlate that to a quote that James Gunn had, I believe over this past weekend, because Superman's going to be coming out and he helped direct that, or he
Hmm.
did direct it. And he had mentioned that, movies are running into issues where they're not finishing, like they're starting the movie before finishing the actual script. And
Hmm.
then it kind of, I'm sure that they run into some issues at the end and, it's kind of mumble jumbled. And
Yeah.
I feel like trailers can kind of play a similar role in that too. So,
Hmm.
you brought up some good examples with Mulan, and some of the other Pixar, Disney animated films or, live action films off of animation. It's you're kind of like, wow, that movie looks hilarious, and you go and see it, and you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
what was it? It's kind of like open-ended promises, and it's kind of left a lot, more to be, imagined
Hmm.
and fulfilled as a viewer. So, definitely has gained some attention this past weekend with that topic. But I definitely feel like, there's plenty of great movies that will capitalize on trailers, and sometimes
Yeah.
trailers don't do them justice either. So,
Yeah. Yeah. When I look at the movies we have on our 10, that year five and my five, I feel like I haven't seen Materialists, but seeing all the reviews, seeing all the TikToks, it's just popping up and it's trending. It looks like it probably wasn't what people expected it to be. I think the other one I'm sort of iffy on if it's gonna match what the trailer is Megan 2.0, just
mhm,
because that's sort of an unknown. Um, Same with 28 years later. I think it'll be exactly what we're expecting, but I feel like it could be tweaked a little bit, especially
mhm.
with it being now a three-part, 28 years later trilogy.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's crazy, that these movies do it. And yeah, I think a lot of the movies start the trailers before the script's done because it's all a money grab. Like we have to just put it out there. Like it's all about making the money, making these big box office hits. And if you don't make, if your movie doesn't make money, you're probably never going to be making another big name movie, and you're gonna have to go to the indie scene, go to the Netflix route, which nowadays the Netflix route probably isn't a bad thing, Amazon Prime, stuff like that. But that's what it was back in the day. You're not making those mainstream movies, but um, yeah, we'll see. Naked Gun, Tim. You sent me that trailer.
Oh yeah.
Is that a movie trailer that you feel like is gonna live up to that trailer, or are you a little scared about it?
So, it's definitely a different turn. And it's one of those films that with new actor, Liam Neeson is going to be the
Hmm.
one kind of filling in the shoes there of main character of Naked Gun. And, I feel like it could go to obviously one of two ways. It could
Hmm.
live up to the hype and, the funny scenes that we're seeing in this
Yeah,
trailer, or it could be just a cheesy comedy.
yeah,
And, just kind of, it's like, why did we make another one of these? And kind of be bummed out. As far as I can see, I'm kind of interested to see it.
yeah.
Personally, I think it looks funny so far. It looks creative, kind of that creative comedy that Naked Gun movies have always been. And, kind of expect the unexpected in a way, of like the end results of each of the jokes in the film. Um, yeah, I kind of have high hopes for it, but in the
Yeah.
back of my mind, I'm also thinking cheesy comedy. What
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's gonna live up to what we are seeing in the trailer, and I'm excited for it because it's sort of bringing back that old school comedy movie that sort of pushes the limits that we haven't seen in a long time in comedy.
Mhm,
I was listening to a podcast. I had a Stavros Halkias, so Stavi baby.
mhm,
And he made his own movie, Let's Start a Cult, and he sort of said what he did with his movie was bringing back that old school comedy, just those dumb jokes that just cracked us up because that's what we enjoyed, growing up on it. And I think, for
mhm,
us with our generations, like that's the kind of comedy we grew up with, Billy Madison. You can't I don't think they'll ever make another Billy Madison because I don't think you could do that type of
mhm,
comedy unless you're ballsy enough to do it. A lot of
mhm.
Adam Sandler's movies, Wedding Crashers, a movie like that. I don't know if you can make it nowadays the way, just just how sensitive people are to some of the comedy and jokes, you know.
Yep.
Dave Chappelle's show, you can't make that show nowadays. You're gonna get canceled
Oh yeah.
after that first skit. So I'm sort of excited about the new Naked Gun because from the trailer it shows it's gonna have that type of comedy that's sort of edgy on the edge and what we grew up with as kids, and not like 5-year-olds, but like 12, 13, when we were, older. But that's what I'm excited about, and I hope it sticks to that. But we'll see.
Yeah, Thunder is another one that came to mind with
Oh
Robert
yeah,
Downey
oh yeah.
Jr.'s
You
role.
can't you can't do that movie anymore. Like it'd be
No.
amazing to do it again, but I know whoever does it, it's sort of kiss kiss your Hollywood career goodbye because I don't think you'll
Yep.
survive it.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's changed so darn much since it
Hmm.
first came out. But kind of correlating to that movie, evidently, supposedly Tom Cruise wants to do a spin-off with his
Hmm.
role in that film, and I think that could be hilarious.
Yeah.
He had some crazy lines in there himself too.
Yeah.
So could be an edgy
Yeah.
comedy, but one
Yeah.
that hopefully we can kind of get back to.
Yeah.
It obviously doesn't have to be like, so crazy, but
Hmm.
just if we get a little bit loose with some things, I don't
Hmm.
think it's the worst thing in the world. I feel like we just need to
Yeah.
kind of get back to it. Kind of rip the
Yeah.
band-aid.
Yeah, yeah, I think we have to rip the Band-Aid. I think there's a lot of comedians that are doing that a little bit more, and it's being successful. And I think it's just like, I think we went through this time where you couldn't do any of those type of jokes, and now we're getting back to where you could do it. We understand it's a joke, but I still know it's pretty tough.
For sure. Yeah, also kind of thinking of it, another movie that I was kind of fooled with the comedy aspect of it because we brought up, Billy Madison and
Hmm.
Adam Sandler was the movie Click. The movie
Hmm.
Click I thought was going to
Oh
be
yeah,
like a hilarious movie.
yeah.
I almost cried in it. Like
Oh,
it was
I shed tears. I shed tears.
yeah, yeah, it
It-
was brutal.
yeah,
God,
but a great movie. But yeah,
absolutely was.
it's sort of the trailer seemed more funny, hilarious, which it had its jokes, it had its moments, but it was a more serious movie.
Yeah,
I I,
definitely.
I think the other one like that was Funny People.
Okay.
Did you? So
I
that
don't
was
think I
a
saw it.
that's a Judd Apatow movie, and it came out. I think it was after like Knocked Up, and it
Okay.
was sort of part of that same Knocked Up universe. You know how they made This Is 40.
Sure.
So Funny People was sort of supposed to be like that, and I think the trailer, from what I remember, it was supposed to be hilarious, but it was a very serious movie, which I enjoyed. The movie wasn't the best, but still a good movie watch. But it wasn't as funny as I was expecting it. Being a Judd Apatow movie after a 40-year-old virgin, knocked up type
Great film.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever I
I don't,
hear Michael McDonald, I think of that movie. Yeah.
yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's movie trailers. Hopefully they start making the movie trailers after the whole story is done and not trying to rush things.
For sure. I completely agree. Good topic. On to the next one. John sent me my take over here. The United States sports system needs to look to improve. With current soccer stars seeking a sabbatical to rest when it comes to playing for their country. Playing for your country, it's the highest honor, and the only U.S. athletes are seeking these breaks from international duty. Yeah, I haven't looked too far into it this past week, but
Hmm.
I've seen there's a ton of United States men's
Hmm.
national soccer team news. And, as this take says, it's taking breaks from wanting to compete for your own country, but other
Hmm.
countries when it comes to, the Olympics, the FIFA World Cup, they take it extremely
Hmm.
seriously. And, all of the top, players of that country are always going to compete. They pretty much would do everything, to fight for that honor of
Yeah.
representing your country in something so big. I'm sure that you have even more information on the
Yeah.
topic of like who's backing down from starting. But I know
Yeah.
it's garnered just a ton of attention. And it's a bummer to see, players kind of opting for a break because we've talked about this with like players like LeBron.
Hmm.
It's like obviously he plays for the Olympics and it's kind of a non-topic there,
Yeah.
but when it comes to him wanting a month off,
Hmm.
it's a bummer to hear. But yeah, what other information do you have on this topic, John?
Yeah, so this came up because of the US soccer. Right now it's the Gold Cup, so this is,
Mhm.
I will say, one of our big tournaments that we could always win, and it's one that we lost 2 years ago to Mexico. And when it comes to soccer rivalries in US, it's US Mexico, and we don't want to give Mexico that one up. So, but some of our big stars have decided to sit out of this tournament, and the big reason is they need a break. They say their body needs to break. They need to, recover from injuries. One of the players, which is, a lot of people call him Captain America, Christian Pulisic. He's a 26-year-old soccer star. Yes, he's been playing since he's been a teen, but this is an international stage. These international games mean a lot to not just these players, but to the fans. And not seeing a big name like him show up, it's a little disappointing. Same with Weston McKennie. He's another player that isn't playing because of a sabbatical, trying to rest, get better. We have Anthony Jedi Robinson, saying he needs to recover from knee injury, so taking a break. But like the one thing that I saw in some reports that I was listening to is they're asking for these breaks, but they're still playing for their club teams, which is sort of mind-boggling. Like, okay, you're saying you need break, you need to rest up your body so you don't get injured, but you're still playing with your club team when playing for your national team, especially when people are doubting the US players, their commitment, how great they are, it's not a good look. In Europe, the Euro Cup just finished. Portugal won it, against Spain, but they all had their top players. Cristiano Ronaldo was playing. He got injured, which is unfortunate in the game, but he gave everything he could for his country, and honestly, he did make a difference to help them get to PK. So it's this one trend that's sort of happening a lot more in the US, and that's why I sort of put that the US system in all sports needs to get better because you mentioned it. We see it in basketball. LeBron asking for that month off, load management. Only place you really see load management is the NBA. Baseball, I don't really, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see it too much in baseball. Too
Mm-mm.
much load management type of thing, but still, I think I don't know if I sent you the video or you sent me the video, but the WNBA, them being complaining of going 1 day breaks or like back to backs when it's like you guys play 40 games in a year. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Really being a professional sports star. It's
Yep.
only happening in the US. Every other country, people are putting their hearts and soul into this game because this is your career, this is your legacy, and you're gonna play until you can't play anymore. So it's unfortunate, that this is happening, because these are young players, and for me, I'm a U.S. soccer fan. I hope they win the World Cup once in my lifetime, but I doubt it after sort of seeing this, because I don't think they're as committed as these other countries.
For sure. It definitely seems that way. Do you feel like, you know, I guess what aspect of U.S. national men's soccer team, what's leading to this load management? Like, is there any culprit, or is it just stars that are continuously joining in and they're like, I'm gonna rest for break. Okay, if Pulisic, wants to rest for a break, like wants to take a rest, I'm gonna do that also. What's the point of going if he's not going? Is there just no true leader within the U.S. men's soccer team?
I think so. I don't think Pulisic is a great player, but I don't think he's that true leader like Landon Donovan,
Yep.
Clint Dempsey, Claudio Reyna, like some of these leaders that would play, Michael Bradley, that would always play and play their hardest. Pulisic is a great player, but I don't think he has that leadership to take this team really far. And then, when you see your best player taking these breaks for so-called rest, other of these top players that sort of just want the break and don't want to their all for their country, like they're gonna sit out. And like I say, for me, for soccer, you play for your club, but you fight for your country. Like I I knew I never was gonna have a soccer career, pro soccer career. I loved soccer, still love it. And if I could play for the US, I'd do whatever, whatever I would have to do. If I was injured, but I could still play and they wanted me to play, I'd be going out there, giving it my all because like I say, you only get to do that a few times.
Absolutely. Yeah, and go out there and compete. And then
Mhm.
also coaching's another thing too, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they just fire the coach maybe in the last couple of years, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah, they fired Bell Harcher probably about a little over a year ago, maybe, and they
Okay, I
hired Ponchetti, so this new
think that's
soccer
right.
coach,
Hmm.
um, which I think because of all these players taking their breaks and not playing fully, not going to, the trainings, he doesn't know what the best lineup is or how to line up this team. And we're what is it, 2 years away from the World Cup. Like we're
Yeah.
getting close to it, like, and we're not even
Hmm.
prepared for it when you should be you should be pretty much set with your team, other than the stars that come out within the last 2 years. You should know your starting 11. You should know your lineups, your formations, how you're gonna attack, how you're gonna defend, because you're going against the top teams. You're going against Argentina, Spain, Italy, Germany, and you got to put Mexico up there. Mexico is on the downfall, and they're coming back up.
Hmm.
So U.S. isn't looking good right now.
Not at all. And it's a bummer to see though, because obviously soccer's got a ton of room for growth in the
Hmm.
US. And I feel like it's picked up steam here and there. We talk about other stars coming to the US for MLS, like Ronaldo.
Hmm.
Messi's obviously already here. Ronaldo would be that next, big figure to kind of join.
Hmm.
But of course, you've brought up this topic before where, it's kind of like a pay to play in the US.
Hmm.
And, trying to develop it out of something like that where it's just more widely available, more opportunities for,
Hmm.
these youngsters to go out there and kind of prove themselves, get more of a
Yeah.
stage. None of this is helping. If you're having
Mm-mm.
professional, soccer players that are born and raised in the US,
Yeah.
not wanting to compete for their own country, all it's doing is giving notoriety to their
Yep.
clubs, which is most likely overseas.
Hmm.
Really disappointing to see, because other sports really capitalize on stuff like that. You have the Olympics, for
Yeah.
example. We'll go back to basketball. You have so many NBA stars that are wanting to compete in this, and it goes back to the
Hmm.
dream team,
Yeah.
and that's just helped grow the sport. And it also
Hmm.
kind of is like, wow, the U.S. is super dominant in that sport. Flag football is another one now. You
Hmm.
have NFL wide receivers that are really leading a march
Yeah.
to like try to be involved in it. That's another, way that they're trying to, play for their country. But, soccer not wanting to step up and do that. You brought up a great example of the WNBA players complaining about back-to-back games. It's like if you want to grow the sport, you're gonna have to play more often.
Hmm.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's what you're paid to do. You're paid to play the sport. Go out
Hmm.
there, live the dream. You're living the dream that so many people wish they had, but they can't. You got to
Yeah.
capitalize on it.
Yeah, no, you got to capitalize it on it, and there's been a lot of soccer analysts talking about this, Alexi Lawless, Landon Donovan, Tim Howard, and it's sort of like at a point where you're giving up your spot, right now to let someone else come in. If this other person comes and performs, I would say your spot's gone. You're to the bench. It doesn't matter what your name
Yeah,
is because this guy's gonna put everything on the line for that team. It's sort of to that point, like, these guys, I feel like some of them may lose their spot. I don't think Christian Pulisic will, but Weston McKennie, Jedi Robinson, even though they're some of the best players still, there's a lot of these young up and comers that are very hungry and very determined to get on this team and this roster that, and especially for the World Cup, like I say, because it comes by every 4 years. So I think they're going to work hard for it. And honestly, Christian Pulisic, these young players, you guys haven't played that long, Landon Donovan, I think he started taking breaks, from playing some of these big games, but he was already in his late 30s, like mid 30s. He was 32. He had already played a lot. And honestly, we're this US team and this core group that sort of complain, like taking a sabbatical, you guys missed out on the World Cup, you know, a few years, like 6 years ago. You guys have nothing to really complain about. You guys got to start showing up. Because, like I said, you guys missed out on a World Cup, which we should never be missing out on a World Cup as the US.
absolutely not. Yeah, because regardless of the sport not being able to grow as much as it should, we still have the resources,
Hmm.
the human population
Yes.
to make more happen. There's
Yeah.
plenty of great facilities across the U.S. They just got to do it. They got to
Yeah.
make it happen. They got to fix the system, and maybe this is kind of a calling for that. But if you're
Hmm.
not going to play, that's a shame. And quite frankly, I hope that they are replaced with somebody who's wanting to take advantage of that opportunity. It'll
Yeah.
be more well deserved, better story. Be
Yeah.
good.
No, for sure. So, but yeah, brought that up because it was just like popping up a lot on my thing. And like I say, it isn't just soccer. I think we talk about it a lot in the NBA, load management. And it only happens in the US. So US needs to change a little bit because it's not looking good for us as a country in sports.
No, it's not. And we bring up load
Mhm.
management in the NBA, John. Let's jump into that NBA Finals.
Yeah.
Game 5 just happened. Yeah, certainly an exciting one.
Hmm.
Indiana, I feel like, kind of struggled early on, but kind of crept and kept it close. I feel
Yeah.
like, it's what they're known to do, I guess, this whole
Hmm.
playoffs. They just kind of, linger and, kind of stay in games, even though they should be being blown out. So, I think it was a 14-point deficit for the Pacers at halftime.
Hmm.
They made it close in the third. I think they shrunk it down to single digits at the end
Yep.
of the third. And then I think it got within 1 or 2 points
Hmm.
because Siakam got off to a hot start in the fourth, and then the turnovers happened.
Yeah.
And there was this. I think it was four straight possessions, four straight turnovers.
Hmm.
I think it was 30 plus points for OKC points off turnovers tonight. I think it
Yeah.
was over 20 turnovers altogether for the Pacers. It was not a good game as far as the Pacers goes, especially with Halliburton. Dude didn't even make a bucket today. We've been talking about this nonstop, John. He's got to find other ways to get it done, and
Yes.
quite frankly, it just wasn't there. It wasn't
No,
there.
it wasn't, and I was gonna bring that up. I think halftime he had 0 points, one or two rebounds, one or two assists. He ended up with a stat line of 4 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds. Your team
True.
kept it close, but they don't keep it close because of you. You don't help them at all. Siakam, 28 points, 6 and 5. That's his usual, contribute how he contributes. TJ McConnell is the one I think stepped up a lot in Obi Toppin today to keep them close in it. Um, but yeah, Halliburton, if he wants to be considered the star, if he wants to be considered the superstar, you gotta show up because there was a meme I saw today that he's either gonna pick to be like Magic Johnson or I can't even remember the scrub player that they had as the other person, and he showed up as a
Mhm.
scrub player today.
Yep.
He didn't show up, and like I say, if for any reason Indiana pulls this off, Siakam's MVP. I don't care what Hallie does. Hallie could have two game winners. I'll still give it to Siakam because Siakam's the one that was the most consistent. Hallie likes to show up for the big shots, for the glamour, and there's a that dude's just he's corny as hell sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
sorry.
I feel like you're exactly right. In you nailed it on the consistency portion. We've been hammering this topic a ton. If he's not going to affect the game with his points, he's got to do it in other ways. And he didn't even do that in other ways tonight. He didn't
No.
even get 10 assists on the game. If he's going to handle the ball as much as he does,
Hmm.
he's just got to impact the game more. I feel like arguably TJ McConnell wasn't played enough down the stretch. Nemhard had some really costly
Yeah.
turnovers towards the end of the game. I feel like McConnell should have played a little bit more. But you're exactly right on Siakam's front. Like that dude, he's been, everything that's consistent. Obviously Halliburton can go off for more points than him, but yeah, if he's going to do this game in, game out, that's your MVP
Hmm.
right there.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the ball, Williams showed up huge
Oh
today.
yeah, he did.
Almost at a career high. I think he had what 39 tonight.
40.
Um,
He had
40, my
40.
bad. I think his career high was 41.
Hmm.
Um, and he just capitalized off of everything.
Hmm.
He played super well. And then you have SGA. Last game, I think it was game 4. He had, what was it, 3 points in the fourth quarter.
Hmm.
Obviously, that's not ideal for a guy that's your MVP,
Hmm.
but turned it around tonight.
Yeah.
31 points, 10 assists. Really did it all. 13 and 14, free throws. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
going to help a ton too. But hey, if they're going to keep calling him, he's going to keep doing
Hmm.
it. So, um, one kind of just I don't know, lackluster is Chet Holmgren.
Hmm.
And I kind of want to link him towards a possible trade, when it comes to Giannis in this offseason. Say they
Hmm.
win, it could be a good trade bait
Yeah.
because, Holmgren kind of lacks size. I feel like that was proven a lot in game 4 when he was
Hmm.
matching up with Miles Turner. But um, what do you think about Holmgren so far this playoff?
Uh, for this series, he struggled. I think he's scared. I think the Pacers, Miles Turner's just bullying him, and I think this is where Chet Holmgren sort of has to recognize I got to build muscle. Like I say, I think we've mentioned it here, and I've mentioned it. Chet Holmgren is like the pre-Giannis. When Giannis came into the league, he was a twig. He was skinny, just like Chet is. And now look at Giannis. That fool's built a muscle, it
Mhm.
looks like. So if Chet wants to be a future star and a Hall of Famer in this league, he needs to find a way to just put on muscle, get some
Yep.
strength, because I think that's what he's missing. He has all the other tools. He has every single tool to have in his belt to be that star. But I think it's a great trade because I think Milwaukee sees that in Chet that he could be Giannis 2.0 if they build him up to be like Giannis muscular wise. And then to get Giannis, OKC has a bunch of first round picks. Get a few of those first round picks. You
Mhm.
just, we'll talk about it in a bit. Desmond Bain just got 4 first round picks,
Yeah,
from Orlando to Memphis. Chet Holmgren should be getting all the first round picks from OKC for Giannis, you know. Giannis,
absolutely.
for Chet and all the first round picks, like that's fair deal on this trade, trade value with the way Desmond Bain was going. So it'd be a great one and it would make this team scary for the next few years.
For sure. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that's something that they might have to kind of, look at if there's one kind of point of
Hmm.
weakness, maybe that's it. It's kind of hard to say that there is a point of weakness with OKC to the way that they've been playing. But quite frankly, I feel like the series is kind of looking, towards the Thunder. I feel like they've
Mm,
certainly gained momentum,
yeah.
in the series, obviously up being 3-2 at the moment, but it's just those Halliburton games, like that's where that superstar factor is going
Hmm.
to come into play, where, he's arguably probably not one,
Yeah.
and, can't really live up to that hype because superstars just don't have games like this,
Yeah. They don't.
and they're, superstars are obviously consistent.
Hmm.
They keep up with it. I think I saw a stat line with LeBron and MJ,
Hmm.
and the amount of games that they had under 20 points. It's minuscule.
Yeah.
It's like single digit numbers throughout their entire career.
Hmm.
And Halliburton seemingly does that every couple of games.
Yeah.
So, he has his moments. I think he's going to have a phenomenal career. He's paid
Hmm.
as such. But that, we're kind of seeing his limits unless he can
Yeah.
find some way to be more consistent.
Yeah. And I hope the kid has a superstar career, but I think teams are going to figure him out because everybody's watching this closely. Every single team that's not in the finals is looking at this and sort of figuring out how to stop Halliburton. Because if you stop Halliburton, you could beat the team. Siakam's only getting older. He might not be able to keep up this pace for so long. And Nimhard, great player, not a superstar. Neesmith, not a great player, or not a superstar, but a great player.
Mhm,
Turner's getting older, and then after that they got nobody,
mhm.
So you stop Hallie, you're gonna beat them easily. So they're gonna figure him out. So this could be their one chance to have gotten the championship before next year, because next year is gonna be still an open East, but it'll be challenging. But yeah, Hallie. You've known my take with Hallie. I've never been a fan of the guy as a basketball player because of this inconsistency. I would always see it in the during the regular season that he just wouldn't show up for some games. And if he wants to be that superstar, you got to be either averaging 20 plus points or averaging he's a ball handler, 15 plus assists, Chris Paul type of games. Don't score much, but you're contributing. If he would have been able to get close to that 15 assists, that's about 10 more. That's about 10, that's another 10 assists. And if they were all twos, that's what, another 20 points. They would have won the game. They
Mhm.
could have won the game, if he was contributing better and being that superstar. So, um, we'll see. I'm curious, how they had the voting between the players of, who was this player, who was that, if Halliburton's still going to be labeled the same way or if it's going to change a little bit after these playoffs.
For sure. Yeah. It's kind of, what's that final taste of, his
Hmm.
NBA, playoffs this season. And, if let's just say OKC wins the next game, they finish it off in six. The taste in our mouth is going to be like, yeah, we kind of saw Halliburton
Yeah.
struggle there in the NBA finals. He had a great game one,
Hmm.
but after that, he kind of nosedived. Even his game one, he turned
Yeah.
it up at the end, right?
Hmm.
So, just kind of lack consistency.
Yeah.
We'll probably see a lot of playbacks of him thinking he was MVP at the end of the conference finals. That'll be on repeat. And yeah, and then
Yeah.
obviously just kind of
Mhm.
consuming exactly what the OKC Thunder have been all season long.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, it seems like they need to add another threat there with
Hmm.
Indy to really kind of put them over the ledge. But as you said, next year's a completely different season. How are the Knicks? What's their coaching situation going to look
Hmm.
like? Are they going to make a big deal?
Yeah.
Giannis has of course been rumored to that team also.
Hmm.
Boston will be healthier, even though I think that they are going to go through a lot of trades. To be honest with you,
Hmm.
our next topic, we're going to be talking trades here. Orlando's another team, that
Hmm.
has great young talent, but
Yeah.
they're all getting older and playing, with each other for, a
Hmm.
few years now. That's going to be another threat. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot that they have to deal with, and the windows can be so small that
Hmm.
you just have to take advantage of them, and if you don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's going to split up.
Yeah. It's gonna split up. I think they had the easy route this year to get to the finals, a depleted Cleveland team. Um, they took down Giannis, but it was just Giannis by himself. There wasn't no Dame Lillard there. Yeah, and then the Knicks, like I said, the Knicks were also, it's them and the Knicks that whoever got there had to take advantage of this moment because it was probably their one shot because Boston was
Mhm.
injured, you know. So we'll see what happens next year. I think they need another star, but I think it goes to that other point that we sort of talk about. Indiana is in a big name marketplace.
Mhm.
And we some of these big name players want that big name market because when you get in that big name market, that means more deals, more endorsements, more ads, and that's more money in your pocket. And it's about winning championships, but it's also about financial stability.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Indy lacks it. OKC, it's working out because, they got these trades done
Hmm.
when, for SGA, for example,
Yeah.
they traded a big name player in order to get, a guy like
Hmm.
SGA. And then they, a lot of the rest of the team, is through draft. So,
Yeah.
these guys are young. Eventually, they're going to have to split up. I think
Hmm.
the window's a little bit bigger than other teams, but you know, eventually they're going to have a payday. And then, OKC is good for a bit. We've seen guys
Hmm.
like KD leave there, Paul George, Russell
Yeah.
Westbrook, James Harden, you name it. They all went to bigger markets. So, they're going to head out, take advantage of other opportunities, bigger paydays, and kind of make a bigger name for themselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Indiana isn't really like, your, oh my gosh, destination. I always think back to Joakim Noah,
Hmm.
talking about Cleveland, and he feels like I believe it was him that said, he would. never, care to go back to that city ever again.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just maybe one of those places. Cleveland's obviously like a little bit bigger market, but
Hmm.
it's still not the biggest. So,
Yeah.
um, is that going to be enough of a pull to try to get a guy like Giannis? Obviously, the trade aspects is going to benefit the Bucks a lot, but I'm not too sure if Giannis has a no trade clause because I
Yeah.
just don't know how he'd feel about going to a market like that.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, that's the thing for Giannis. Is he about the market? Is he about the coach? Is he about the team? I'm looking up payroll. So the only people under contract for next year with OKC, Chet Holmgren, or their contract expires after next year. Chet Holmgren, Usman Dieng, Jalen Williams, and Elijah Mitchell, and the other Jalen Williams.
Hmm.
Um, like I said, they have Shea till 26, 27, Dortz 26, 27, Isaiah Joe till 27, 28, which is weird. Aaron Wiggins till 28, 29. Caruso, they got him till 28, 29, so they got a good player right there.
Yep.
So they got another good year before they got to pay. You're gonna have to pay Jalen Williams for sure. What he's
Oh
doing
yeah.
today, what he's doing right now, you got to pay him. And then Chet, he's a great player. He's gonna ask for that payday. So that's where they may be trade, you know. Chet's a good trade option. Chet, Jalen Williams for Giannis and maybe one or two first round picks.
Hmm.
I think, Milwaukee might try to do that.
Yeah, and don't they still have a rack of, first round picks that they can
Yeah.
get rid of? And, they've had those for what seems like a century at this point.
Yeah.
Partly so. But yeah, that might be a team that, really goes out for that superstar. And I feel like Chet could be a good trade bait to go along
Hmm.
with that and a big name to kind of go up there and, send off. So, definitely seems like a likely destination. And I think SGA is maybe after this season could be getting that super max deal that could be
Hmm.
upwards of what 80 million a year.
Yeah.
It's something outrageous. So
Yeah.
honestly, probably well deserved.
Hmm.
People don't really like the way he plays. He doesn't have to play that way to still be an MVP, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Uh, but again, I'm one of those people that kind of gets annoyed with his play. I'm not gonna lie. But I do recognize greatness when I see it, and he's got it. He's
Yeah.
consistent,
He's
and he's
consistent.
what a superstar is all about. So
Yeah.
yeah, that asking price, for Giannis, we mentioned earlier, kind of going into these trades, and
Hmm.
that Desmond Bain trade. I've talked about it, in our friend group. I've talked about it with, Chris, over this
Yeah.
past weekend. Brutal, like such a ridiculous fleece and overpay that Orlando went through to get
Hmm.
Desmond Bain. Is
Yeah.
what two good players going along with four first round picks
Yeah.
is just outrageous for a player like that. And then it, kind of makes you wonder, where's this market going? Is Giannis going to garner something like six first rounders with two
Yeah.
all-star caliber players? It, where are we going with this, John?
Yeah.
It's
I
crazy.
I don't know. When I saw it, I thought it was a joke for at first because I was like
Hmm.
Desmond Bain, four first round picks, but then look at what New York did for Mikal Bridges. I think they gave up two or three first round picks for another great, amazing player. Nothing against Desmond Bain. I think he really showed up this year for that Memphis Grizzly team. Before
Hmm.
first round picks, Caldwell Pope, who decent role player but hasn't done much. Cole Anthony, I think, is a solid player. A great bench player that's
Yes.
gonna help. So
Hmm.
for Desmond Bain, it's insane, and then it just makes me think. What did Dallas do? Why was Dallas so desperate to get rid of Luca for one first round pick and
Yep.
Anthony Davis? Which Anthony Davis, I wouldn't trade for a first round pick, straight up. You know,
No.
like we all say, he's made of glass. So it's crazy. I don't know what's in that water in Orlando.
Some.
Something weird. Who knows what it is, but I think they're really like you mentioned, Orlando's a team that's been together for quite a long time. This could be their push where they see the East and they feel like they were missing that one key player to have the Indiana luck to make it to the finals and possibly win it if you play perfect basketball.
Right. Exactly. I think that they're kind of recognizing their window is now with their young
Hmm.
talent. I guess clearly what they had available with first round picks.
Hmm.
But I'm just kind of surprised it was a guy like Desmond Bain. I feel like
Yeah.
there's more out there that you could have gotten
Hmm.
with what you sent off. And yeah, I guess Desmond Bain's the guy that's going to put them over the top, and we'll see. I certainly do think it makes the Magic better. Don't get me
It
wrong,
does.
but I think that this could be a trade where we're looking back where it's like, all right, you guys got Desmond Bain, maybe didn't win a championship, but here's what those four first round picks turned into, and it could be, studs,
Hmm.
Memphis ends up with.
Yeah.
So, it kind of a head scratcher. And then
Hmm.
obviously we talked about this market, and what it's turning into for a guy like Giannis, any
Hmm.
other trades that we might see. I feel like, yeah, I was hopeful the Warriors would go after a guy like Giannis this offseason.
Hmm.
After this trade, I don't think we got what it takes to get a guy like that,
No.
just to be, point blank. And, we're better off just holding on to a guy like Kaminga.
Hmm.
He's, hopefully going to develop into a good prime. But yeah, the asking price is going to be much too high. Let's see what happens with Kevin Durant. I know that's a player that we also want to talk about.
Yeah.
He's rumored most recently, as of today, there's a report that he wants to go to the Spurs. What are the Spurs going to give up? I'm
Hmm.
sure, they have a lot of young players. Sochin is
Hmm.
one that, is kind of rumored in a package,
Yeah.
and they have this number two pick this season.
Yeah.
You throw a number two pick to get a guy like Kevin Durant? It
I
just seems
I
like a lot.
I wouldn't throw a number two for Kevin Durant. I think Sochin, I think Vessel's there who really showed up this year,
Yep.
and maybe a future like second rounder, a few future second round, like two or three, maybe if you really feel KD is going to be that difference maker. Um, and I think if they do that, I think with the new the new monk Wemby, they're gonna be unstoppable.
I completely agree. That's a young team that's developing into a lot more. I think we're going to see the Spurs of old and, kind of just a new franchise look there.
Yeah.
I just don't know if KD's really the guy that they need.
No.
I
I
I,
I, I
I
don't
just don't
think it
think
is.
so.
No.
Yeah.
No. I, I think if they go for someone, they should go for Giannis as well.
Yeah.
Imagine Giannis and Victor Wembanyama. Ain't nobody
Oh,
getting past that front court.
no. And what a guy to learn from,
Yeah.
for Wemby, learning
Yeah.
off of what Giannis
Yeah.
is and what he's become.
Yeah. Learn how to bulk up like him too.
I
You know,
swear,
get
this
that
before
secret.
and after. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you eating?
Yeah.
Um, I feel like that's, yeah, a much better trade probability. I feel like
Hmm.
KD maybe he's better suited with just going to a team like the Heat. They're not going to develop
Yeah.
into a lot, but at least maybe it's a good place for him to live.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's a rumored destination. I think
Yeah.
Houston also
Houston.
is.
Yeah. San Antonio, Houston, Miami. Those are the three teams he wants to go to.
Yep, yep. And Houston has more to offer to the
Mm-hmm.
Suns. They have a lot of great young talent that
They
they
do.
can send over, in the way of players versus maybe draft picks. Um, and maybe that's something that they go for, I guess. I don't know. Katie's obviously a phenomenal player.
Hmm.
I just feel like at this point in his career, I don't, everything's going to kind of seem like an overpay based off of what his asking price will be.
Yeah. Yeah. KD, you're gonna have to pay what a lot of people play. Or I'm not gonna say a lot of people because it's not a lot of people that paid for this. What we paid for Paul George, which I still regret. All
Uh-huh.
those first round picks and a star, a future star. Because like you mentioned, Desmond Bain, what they're doing, what Orlando's doing is win now. That's what we were doing as a Clipper team with Paul George was win now championship mode. So we gave up a lot because we were like, this is the difference maker. And it bit us in the ass because we haven't even been close. He's been injured. He's not even on our team no more. And look
Yep.
at what all those first round picks and Shea has done for OKC, and they're about to win a championship. That could have been us. That's where I'm sort of still a little salty.
Yeah, right. It's literally the Paul George finals.
Hmm.
That's what we got. So
Yeah.
yeah, we talked about that a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, KD, don't know where he'll end up. I quite frankly, I just don't think he's going to make much of a difference at this point in his career. Um, I feel like we kind of dodged one with the Warriors in a way.
Hmm.
I'd rather, save up and, obviously I say that comment about Giannis, and we don't have what it takes to get him. But quite frankly, the hope is still there in my eyes.
Hmm.
I hope we can pull something off because never say never. And yeah, but that just that Desmond Bain train was such a head scratcher. It was really came out of nowhere too. It's like
Hmm.
it, season's not even done yet. We're already making lofty deals like this. Kind of makes you think about what's to come. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. What's to come? Who's next? Because like I say, Clippers, we need to make some moves. We need to make a change. We're on the cusp of maybe making the finals. Uh, but like I say, West is so difficult.
Mhm.
The Warriors, you guys have maybe what? What do you think your window is? Another 2, 3 years before that window might close. So
Yeah.
you guys need to make some good moves to just keep you guys competitive. Like I said, Lakers until LeBron leaves and we see what the Luka future is. That's another team that is gonna have to make some big moves. And Denver, you got Jokic. People want to play with Jokic because they know playing with him, you could get to a finals easily just with that player. So there's going to be a lot of moves. So I'm curious to see.
Yeah, Michael Porter is a player that's,
Hmm.
been in a lot of trade possibilities with that team, especially because, he was injured. He played through a lot. I'll give him
Yeah.
that. But he just downright struggled. I feel like a
Hmm.
lot, the whole playoffs. So,
Yeah.
he's a player. And then I think Boston's going to get really heavily involved. They have
Hmm.
to kind of, get apart from, a guy like Kristaps. I don't know how much longer he's locked in, but Jaylen Brown is even a guy that's kind of rumored as a trade
Yeah.
possibility. I've seen mock trades of him to the Warriors. Kind of interesting. Probably give up way too much to get him. But, that's just a team that just has to make deals too.
Hmm.
So that's what's expected. Let's see what the Knicks do with their coaching situation and how that can shake out.
Hmm.
Cat obviously wasn't a good defender in as it
No.
got late in the playoffs, and that's was costly. Will they make a deal?
Yeah.
Imagine, I think you mentioned a couple weeks ago, John, a cat combo with some picks, send
Hmm.
him to Milwaukee, get
Yeah.
Giannis as
Get
well. I
Giannis.
think
Yeah.
that would put him over the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Giannis with Brunson, Mikel, that team. I think that pushes them for next year. Because like I said, I think Boston next year won't. I don't think they'll make the playoffs because I don't think Tatum's coming back till probably end of the year.
Yep.
So I think they're sort of in a rebuild mode, get Tatum healthy, figure out what you're gonna do. Like I say, Drew Holiday, everybody's gonna want to trade for that guy because every time he switches
Yep.
teams, that team wins championships. So whoever gets
Yeah,
that's
that's
gonna be the
true.
Holiday sweepstakes. Whoever gets
Yep.
Holiday, I want to see if they win it because if so, that guy's just a lucky charm.
That's valid. Yeah, no, he's a difference maker right off the bat. And then one final point here I wanted to bring up, John, is I sent you a clip
Mm,
with, Mr. LeVar Ball
mm,
talking about the Ball brothers, all three Ball brothers teaming up with the Clippers.
mm.
How would you feel, probably minus Leangelo, let's be honest, but how would you feel about like Lonzo and LaMelo going to the Clippers, if they could, if you, let's say you're not giving up a whole lot to get them.
If I'm not giving up a whole lot, if I keep Kawhi, Zubac, I don't think we keep Powell, Harden. I wouldn't mind it, because
Hmm.
I think you keep Harden at the one, LaMelo at the two, Kawhi three. We figure out that four and Zubac. We got a solid rotation,
Yeah.
and what LeVar said. you know, though them as a crew, the three Ball brothers, they run fast, they play quick, and that's what Indiana, that's what OKC have done, and they've been successful. So you need that speed, and those guys could be that speed. I think Lonzo. Let's see how that knee plays out. He ended decently, not injured, so that's a good sign. Hopefully he rehabs it.
Mhm.
But if I'm not giving up a lot, I'm not giving up a multiple first round picks. I say let's go for it. It's Hollywood. We got to try to make a move before our window closes because our window's getting close to closing.
I like it. Yeah, the only downside is, they can get injured quite a bit, but I think that would bring a ton of excitement
Hmm.
to the Clippers. And
Yeah.
LA grown, LA raised kids,
Hmm.
get them over there. LaMelo's fun to watch.
Yes.
He's when he does play, he is fun. In teaming up, it could be like the
Hmm.
old Chino Hills days.
Yeah.
Playing quick, cherry picking,
Hmm.
you name it. You know.
Yeah. They're playing at home, and maybe that's just what they need. Lonzo played well with the Lakers before the trade, and LeBron coming over, so it it could be that change. And LaMelo, he's far from home. He's a Hollywood kid. He's a star, so being in
Mhm.
Hollywood, it's gonna help him a little bit more. So I wouldn't hate it, but like I said, I just don't want to give up too much because we've given up for so many players, and it's bit us so much that that's why we still haven't won.
For sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Change is
Mhm.
probably needed. But yeah, heading into a different sport, John. I think
Mhm.
next we got baseball, right?
Yeah.
You want to start off with, more trade talk with the Giants, or should we
Yeah.
go into Shohei's? Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Let's
Um,
start.
let's discuss this Giants trade that just has me waking up like it might still be a dream. So, big news obviously happening yesterday, really random, right
Hmm.
before the Dodgers Giants kicked off for Sunday night baseball. We got this, huge blockbuster trade that occurred where Rafael Devers is traded from Boston to San Francisco for what would have been the starting pitcher, Kyle Harrison, along with Jordan Hicks,
Hmm.
along with Jose Barras, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
And but there are two basically Arizona League draft picks. And
Hmm.
then there's one more outfielder that, um, could very well develop into being a stud.
Hmm.
Um, I was asked by Chris in the group chat that I have with him and Evan, he's like, put it in different terms for me. What does this trade mean to us Giants? And I said, this is us trading for Luca because obviously Luca is a big,
Hmm.
big trade from the NBA. I said, this is us trading for Luca and us giving up only Pods, Kaminga, and Kevon Looney.
Hmm.
And then here we are with
Yeah.
with a superstar because that's exactly what Devers is. He's
Hmm.
consistent. He absolutely rakes.
He does.
And, quite frankly, he's arguably a top five hitter in this league. A lot of people are saying top 10, but quite frankly, I think he's pretty close to top five.
Hmm.
And he provides a bat that the Giants desperately needed. I've been hammering on this topic a
Yeah.
lot, where our pitching is doing great, but we have no bats to back it up. So
Hmm.
Beavers provides that, and I just think he's going to be an absolute stud for us. And just what we gave up. Red Sox fans are in absolute shambles, and rightly so. They've been super upset with their GM. I think that they're confused on what steps they're taking to remain competitive.
Competitive. Hmm.
Because quite frankly, Kyle Harrison, he's a great pitcher.
Yeah.
But I say he's great, but on league-wide standards, he's good.
Yeah.
So, um, and Jordan Hicks isn't going to give you
No.
shit. Sorry. He's been getting shelled. He's been moved to the pen. We tried him out as starter. He can throw hard, but
Yeah.
Mm, it's not much. And then they're relying on what could be with two young stars, and I'm shocked that we're hanging on to one of our stud first basemen that's currently in AAA. Um, so yeah, huge win for the Giants. I'm super excited.
huge win. That's what I'll say. Red
Hmm.
Sox not forcing Bryce Eldridge on this
Yes, Bryce
trade.
Eldridge.
Stupid of them because they are missing that first base. This Rafael Devers, and like I say, the only reason I know a little bit about the Red Sox is because family affair. Vera's a Red Sox fan, Boston fan, family there. So I follow them, and Rafael Devers, beginning of the season, frustrated with their trade for I'm blanking on the
Bregman.
name. Bregman, and he was being told he was still going to play third. Bregman was supposed to play second. And then all of a sudden, no, you're going to DH. That's your new position. Bregman going to third. Bregman gets hurt. Now they want him to go back, and Devers is sort of hard-headed, saying, "No, I'm gonna say this is what you guys wanted me to play. This is what I'm gonna play." Then they want him to play first because I think their first baseman got hurt too. Didn't want to go to first because he's like, "I'm DH. That's what you guys told me." So
Mhm.
I understand why they wanted to get rid of him, but man, you guys just locked him up for 10 years. 10
Mhm.
freaking years. Like you guys got this stud where it's like what the Red Sox traded for. This is worse than the Mookie Betts trade to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
We thought Mookie to the Dodgers, what they gave up was bad. That looks really good compared to this. And like I say, Red Sox need a first baseman. They have a great first baseman, but he's injured. So how do you get someone else in there? Bryce Eldridge.
Yep.
I think Giants, if they would have pushed for it, I think they would have caved. I think they would have given it because they know Rafael Devers. We've talked about it. You mentioned it. You guys need hitting,
Hmm.
and that he gave you that. And when I saw the trade, I wanted to do a TikTok sort of like do you know that one laughing video? And I was gonna put like, oh, San Francisco Giants think they got something with Devers, and then we were just laughing as Dodger fans. But truly, I'm just like, man, this makes it competitive now. Because you could call me a Padre disliker, hater, whatever. Padres aren't at our level. They
Hmm.
haven't won a World Series. Until they win a World Series, they can't be in the same conversation as the Dodgers and the Giants. And we're sort of competing for who's going to take that one up because we both have 8 chips. So
Yep.
we want to win it. Dodgers want to win it. Giants want to win it. And Buster Posey, you guys made the best choice getting
I
him
swear.
into your front office.
Yep. The dark cloud is gone, which was Farhan. And yeah,
We
and here
we
we are
tainted
with
you for a bit.
absolutely, absolutely. And Buster Posey is I commented this on somebody's video over the weekend
Hmm.
yesterday. Buster Posey is arguably the best thing that's happened in Giants history. Barry Bonds, of course, up there, Willie Mays, you name it.
Hmm.
But Buster Posey, 3 World Series, him as a player.
Yeah.
But what he's done in just his first season in the front office is
Hmm.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
He has just turned this team around so quickly. And this trade is, he just gets it. He just freaking gets it. Us as fans, we repeatedly were like, oh, we need a bat. We need a bat. Oh,
Hmm.
here's another offseason. We're going to do jack
Yeah.
shit. Gonna watch the Dodgers do a zillion different, deals and trades. And, we're going to be sitting back and just losing out on everything. But Posey right away, man, like
Hmm.
he realizes we need a bat, and it started off with, Lamont Wade and,
Yeah.
being DFA. It was a tough choice to make because everybody likes Wade and what he provided, but he recognized it wasn't enough. And then here we are adding the bat that we need.
Hmm.
And then not to give up Eldridge, like you said, the Red Sox are just fools because they did not have to make this trade right now.
No.
They did not have to do it. They could have
No.
waited, and
Hmm.
they chose not to. And I've seen some arguments of Red Sox fans being like, well, at least the Red Sox don't have to pay on this contract. It's like, perfect. Let us pay on this contract because it's a good one. And it
It's a
locks
good
them in
one.
for years to come. I want
Yeah.
to say until what, 2033? There's like 8 more years remaining.
Hmm.
Please sign me up for 8 more years of Rafael Devers.
Yeah.
This dude is just a stud. And then he gets to start off as a Giant against the Cleveland Guardians, who he absolutely rakes against.
Hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked on this. I don't even know if we're done doing deals. I feel like we could still do it. Um, but yeah, way to go, Posey. Buster
Yeah.
Posey is just so God sent, and he's perfect for this role. He's generational.
So you
He's the best thing.
you're drooling too much, Tim. Clean your mouth right
He's
there.
the best. Buster
Too much
Posey. Oh
drooling
my
right
God.
there.
Yeah.
No, but like the
Incredible.
Red Sox, man, like yeah, they made the biggest mistake. They didn't have to do this yet. The way
No.
their season and the way they just finished off the Yankee series, Devers, Duran, they've been playing, you know, they were on a good streak where it looked like they could make a late playoff push. But now you do this, you're just throwing a wrench. You know, I think I'm thinking Duran's next. I think he's gonna go. Someone's gonna pick him up. I know they've linked him a lot to the Padres. I hope not. I just don't
Yep.
want the Padres to get anybody else, but who knows? Maybe this sort of keeps him there longer. But yeah, the Red Sox had a decent they have a good team. They just haven't been able to put it together, and doing trades like this is going to hurt you. Like I say, look what happened after the Mookie Betts trade. You guys weren't relevant for so long. You guys are coming back. Roman Anthony, hasn't been playing too well, but he's still first year
Yep.
in rookie. Give him a year, have him develop with Devers, a good hitter, Bregman, next year could have been the year you guys for the Red Sox. So they are making mistakes. If I was a Red Sox fan, I would be so pissed. Um, haven't really talked too much to the Red Sox family that I have because I just don't want to trigger anything. Um, but yeah, and then Giants, like I say, um, yeah, we'll see you. We'll see you in the playoffs.
We'll see ya.
We'll see. We'll see you in the playoffs
Yeah.
because that's where we're gonna see you
Yeah.
guys. And sort of going into that with the Dodgers, it's we'll see you in the playoffs, but I'm a little scared. And not
Hmm.
scared of the Giants, scared of our team,
Hmm.
where we're gonna end up. Because one of the big news for us, Roki Sasaki is sort of shut down for the year. That's another pitcher, and that's just killing us. Last year we
Hmm.
struggled with pitching. We said pitching was gonna win us the World Series. We got through it. Can we do it 2 years in a row? I don't know, because like I said, we're gonna have to go against the Giants. We're still gonna have to go against the Padres, and the NL. It's just so stacked. It's so hard. So here's my pitch. Paul Skeens, come to LA. You got the money. We got the money. We'll show you the money. We'll show you a lot of stuff. But that's a trade we need to make, I think, to sort of maybe have not too hard of a postseason.
Yeah, it's a lofty goal, John. But, honestly, we've seen crazier things, especially
Hmm.
this year, and all things sports trades.
Uh,
Paul Skeens, if you guys get him, I'm going to be pretty livid. Hopefully, Buster Posey, he just continues to cook and we get,
uh,
something worked up on our end instead. But yeah, you guys are honestly pretty desperate for pitching,
mhm,
and Shohei obviously pitching debut today.
mhm.
And, it's something that we've discussed last week. I brought the question to you
Yeah.
about, are we going to see Shohei? And then lo and behold, here we go. And, you know, hopefully everybody that watched the video hammered the under because he only threw one
Yeah.
inning. It was quite a
Yeah.
few pitches in that first inning as well.
Yeah.
Got out with only giving up, I think, a run, no
What?
strikeouts, no
Yeah.
walks, a few hits. But kind of expected for a first downing.
Hmm.
Dave Roberts loves to go to your bullpen,
Yeah.
and just I, it's okay. He goes to the bullpen.
Hmm.
He's kind of needed to,
Yeah.
but yeah, pitching is such a crazy thing for you
It
guys.
is.
And we brought up Duran. You brought up a Duran a second ago. Maybe he's a bat that you guys consider adding too, because isn't the outfield
Hmm.
kind of meh?
Yeah.
There's been
It's iffy.
some yeah, it's iffy at times, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like that's maybe a spot where you guys kind of lack at times. So maybe that's under consideration.
Hmm.
But Yeah, pitching. Hey, that's news to me about Roki Sasaki. That's kind of disappointing to hear. There's promise for him, but he just has not gotten off to a good start. And,
No,
obviously injury plays a factor, but,
yeah,
hopefully he comes back strong later on. Blake Snell hasn't even thrown an inning for you guys, right?
not
That's turned into
not not
nothing.
not since the beginning of the year.
Yep.
Like I say, for Snell, I hope he's just ready for the playoffs. Because, like I say,
Yep.
we're still in that trend where I think we'll make the playoffs. If anything, we'll have to be in the wild card. So hopefully he could come back 100% the normal Blake Snell that we know when he is good and on it. Um, but yeah, it's our pitching that's gonna be a struggle. Shohei, like I say, one earned run, one inning, but showed a lot. 97, 97 mile per hour fastball, hit a 98, and even got into 99. So he has the speed. He
Yep.
had them swinging and missing. Tatis, that one big old swing that he had and missed with, like,
Mhm.
it, it's good, but let's continue just slowly getting him in. Like, don't do too much. One, maybe next game he pitches another one inning, bring in the bullpen, and then start moving into two. But yeah, I liked it. I liked what I saw from him. Um, very passionate with his pitching, Shohei. He was a little frustrated with some of those calls. Um,
Mhm.
Machado should have been a strikeout, but that's baseball. I'm not going to complain
Yep.
about it. We still won, so take that,
Still on the
Padres.
Padres.
Yeah, take that, Padres. We still won, even though we only had
Yep.
him pitch one innings. You guys can't do it against him, So, um, like I say, Dodgers, we need a lot. I think pitching, like I said, Paul Skeens, I think that'd be a great piece for us. But any, top pitcher in these, low teams, I'd be happy with. Duran too. We could always use a bat, if we could just outscore the team, our pitching just has to be mediocre. That's what we've done last year. And if he could pull it off again, I think we're okay. Kike Hernandez might be our, number two starter now, the way he's pitched some of these games,
Mhm.
throwing those nice little softball type, pitches,
Yep.
trolling all these teams. But yeah, it'll be a good end of the year, but I was happy to see what I saw from Shohei. I'm curious what we'll do, but pitching for us is where I hope we make a trade.
Yeah, big need there. But you guys have what's crazy, you guys are still on top of the division. So,
Yeah.
it's at least there's some type of room for testing things out, seeing what you guys can
Hmm.
do in the meantime. But just knowing Dodgers and your guys' front office, you guys are gonna make a deal before the deadline. It'll be, I'm sure, pitching oriented, maybe a bat in the outfield, maybe a
Hmm.
couple different deals. Let's see what
Yeah.
happens. Maybe you guys compare something, with Skeens and, get a guy like God, what's his name? There's a decent hitter with Pittsburgh. It's not McCutcheon, but Brian Reynolds.
Reynolds, yeah.
He's got a big bat. Maybe he could
Hmm.
provide for the Dodgers if they pair him with Skeens. I hate that I'm even trying to give trade ideas for the Dodgers at the moment because up yours. But quite frankly, let's go against those Padres. Both teams kind of you need to
Yeah.
unite against them and um, kind of just not let them have their way.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dodgers honestly will be fine. I'm sure they'll find a way. They always do. You guys still have incredible hitters, incredible players on
Hmm.
that team to kind of guide you through. So, um, NOS is crazy stacked. It's
Yeah.
been a hell of a year, minus the Rockies. Thank you, Rockies, for the free wins at times. And the D-backs still linger.
Hmm.
They've been winning
They,
games late.
they
Naylor's
they
good.
they got a solid team. I think the only concern with them is their starting pitching. Didn't they lose their
Yep.
starting pitcher
Tommy
to
John.
Tommy John?
Yep.
So that's where they're struggling. They say Yankees. You mentioned it. They're pitching. That's where they're going to struggle.
Yep.
Tampa
Cubbies
Bay's
are
got
great.
Cubbies are great. Detroit's still just killing it. I'm telling you,
Yep.
that's the one team that I feel like could get Paul Skeens, and nobody's going to want to see them in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. The Mets are obviously a threat as well.
Mm-hmm.
Toronto's kind of turned it around this year,
Yeah.
believe it or not. Um,
Phillies.
Phillies are always going to linger.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens when Harper comes back. He's been hurt.
Yeah.
Milwaukee's a team that's always hanging in there.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cubbies are honestly, I think it's going to be 18 straight series that they're winning, that they've won,
Mm-hmm.
so far this year.
Yeah.
Um, it's they have big bats, but their pitching's kind of come along as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're a huge threat,
Yeah.
the Cubs for the
They're
for
a
the
big
NL.
threat. Yeah. The Houston trash can Astros, they're still in it.
Yeah.
They're always
Uh-huh.
in it. Um, but yeah, we'll see. And then yeah, there's a lot of disappointing teams, I think. You
Yep.
know, Atlanta a little under there.
Oh, big time.
Angels are making a bit of a run. They have a solid team, but they're still not there with Trout.
Yeah.
I think we
I,
spoke about it last week a little bit, and I was sort of wanted to bring it up. Baltimore Orioles. That was a team I thought was going to be a dark horse this year, and they are just disappointment.
They're stinking it up. I think Grayson Rodriguez, one of their great pitchers, has been injured. I don't think their pitching's doing too well. Their hitting has kind of suffered a bit.
Mhm.
Um, you know, what's his face? It's on my fantasy team. Shouldn't say what's his face because he's a great player. Um, but
Rushman or
no, Gunnar Henderson.
Gunnar Henderson? Yeah.
He was injured for a bit, but
Hmm.
on the year, he's played for quite a few games now. Only 8 home runs,
Yeah.
20 ribbies. He's hitting for average this year, which is something that he didn't do quite so much last year.
Hmm.
But just
Yeah.
they just kind of lack. Richmond's obviously a great catcher, but it's
Yeah.
just the team's just been pretty disappointing. Jackson Holiday hasn't, he's hitting better this year altogether,
Yeah.
especially average wise, but it's still a really young team.
Hmm.
They fired their manager. I don't know if that was arguably too soon.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hot mess, and a lot of Baltimore Oriole fans, I think, have lived through quite a bit of this throughout their
Hmm.
career of being fans. So they're kind of used to these things. But yeah, Baltimore's just been utterly disappointing,
Yeah.
and maybe they have more of a chance with what the Red Sox did though. Just the
Hmm.
Yankees are just a tough team to beat
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's gonna be the AL East with Tampa, Toronto. That's a hard one to get out of.
for
Um,
sure.
yeah. Like I say, we're reaching the end of the playoffs. The NBA playoffs, that's ending most likely soon. I feel if I have to call it, I call it game six. Uh, don't really want to see it go game seven because I feel like if it goes game seven, Indiana's gonna win and Hallie's gonna shoot a
Yep.
game winner, and I just don't want to deal with that. So
Yeah.
hopefully game
Right.
six on Thursday, but like I say, it'll still be a great game.
Hmm.
Hockey, we could touch on it a little bit, watched a little bit. Oilers gave up a big game in Edmonton, the last
Yep.
game. They're playing tomorrow, down 3-2, back in Panthers home. Can they do it? I think with Chris, we talk a lot about hockey right now because we do pick quite a few of them for our parlays. And Connor McDavid last game just didn't show up. Didn't have
Yep.
his best game, losing. Um, and their goaltending has been ugly to say the least.
For sure. Yeah. Didn't they have to pull their goalie early
Yeah,
on
yeah.
a couple
I
games
think I think
ago?
it was like
And
game three. They pulled
yep,
them in like the second, and then I think game four they pulled them in the first, and they came back and won. So
Skinner.
yeah,
Yeah. And then it's just it's Canadian teams just can't get it done.
no, they
It's
can't.
we're kind of stealing their sport here with the American teams, but obviously a lot of our players are, either Canadian or overseas, but
Hmm.
um Florida's just they're just there, and for them to pull off a trade for Marchand, at the
Hmm.
end of the year, I think it's proven a big difference for them.
Yeah.
That there's Florida just the momentum's there. I just
Hmm.
think that they probably close it out in this next game.
Yeah, I think they win it. Edmonton's still that type of team that could come back. I think they have the offensive power, but Florida, they just got the more solid team. So I'm excited to see it. I am gonna watch it as much as I can tomorrow, just
Hmm.
because I sort of want to see it. I hope this goes game seven because I think game seven would be good with hockey because both of
I do
these teams
too.
want to win it. I think Edmonton, if they can make it to game seven, they'll play a lot better, but and it'll be crazy because it's in Edmonton. It's in Canada.
Oh,
Imagine
yeah,
that crowd. That's gonna be insane. So it'll be cool to
absolutely.
see a game seven, but um, it's been a good hockey season. I've watched a bit more hockey ever since we started the podcast. I've watched a lot more sports since starting this when I get
Hmm.
the chance with the kiddo. So, and hockey's been one that I sort of want to see a little bit more next year.
It's a great sport, and quite frankly, arguably the best broadcasters in all of
Hmm.
sports. Their play-by-play is incredible.
Yeah.
Their energy is incredible, and it's not really it's not an easy thing to call, as a
Yeah.
broadcaster. The puck moves so quickly,
Oh yeah.
and they're just naming out absolutely everybody. They're so locked in, but just most of all their energy. So I
Hmm.
I love listening to the broadcasts of hockey.
Hockey. Yeah.
And the NHL is just a really fun sport to watch if you really get into it and start learning a lot more about it. It's a ton of fun to watch. There's a ton
Hmm.
of action. People can drop gloves at any moment, start
Oh yeah.
just punching their faces
Yeah.
in. And I feel like just hockey's on a huge uptick, something that
Mhm.
soccer's not undertaking.
Oh.
And I love it for the sport. I think it's great. Hockey's
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah. Hockey's fun. It's a good one. So I hope, like I say, my team's the San Jose Sharks. Hopefully they could come back eventually, but they got a top prospect, so hopefully in the next few years we see them back.
Yeah, yeah. I San Jose is a really fun team, like you said. With that, that youngster that they got, that number one overall pick.
Hmm.
Hopefully it turns into something.
Yeah.
Great
So
logo though.
yeah, no, I
Great
like the
logo.
logo too.
Yeah. It's the
Yeah,
shark biting the stick.
the
Oh man,
stick. Yeah,
badass.
yeah. So, but yeah, that's sports playoffs. Like I say, once the playoffs are done with both hockey, basketball, which most likely will be done by our next recording on Monday. We'll be talking baseball and a lot of other stuff, and we'll sort of go into one of those topics that we'll probably talk about quite a bit is movie
Hmm.
recaps and just movies in general. So we had our movie game update. We had five movies. We're gonna see which five movies make the most money uh opening weekend only and also just domestic, so just in the US. Tim's five were Fantastic Four, Jurassic World, um, the new one, Elio, the animated Pixar movie, Ballerina, and Materialist, while my top five were Superman, How to Train Your Dragon, F1, Megan 2.0, and 28 Years Later. So, as of right now, I'll give the little money update. So, Ballerina opening weekend made 25 million. Materialists made 12 million. So with two movies, you're at a total of 37 million um, so far, Tim. And those were your two lowest rated movies. So keep
Hmm.
that in mind too.
Pack a
For
punch light
me,
here, John.
huh?
We'll pack a punch light here, John.
Yeah.
We'll make a comeback.
Yeah. So for me, the only movie I've had so far is How to Train Your Dragon, and opening weekend, we're at 83.7 mil.
Jesus. Very nice.
So, but like I say, your other three movies, those are movies not to mess with.
For sure.
So, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
overall the movies I've watched, Ballerina, How to Train Your Dragon. I know you mentioned Materialist a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, Ballerina, my review, I liked it. It sort of just comes out of the John Wick world which it's what it's supposed to be. Story was interesting. How they sort of combined it with the John Wick, first four movies. Interesting. Still a little confused how it happened. Like I said, I'm trying to give as little spoilers as I can to
Hmm.
the movie. But overall, good. Liked it. Good action sequences. The story was good. I'm curious if there's going to be sequels with this one. 25 million opening weekend. I think it stayed at number two this second week, so did okay.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, lots of action I've heard. Lots of friends and family went to go see it opening weekend. I was given like some small fist bumps, like, yeah, go watch that. But John Wick, as we know with this whole series altogether, it's nonstop action.
Yep.
And, a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's a ton of fun. It keeps me really tuned into the film.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes it can get to the point where I just start laughing. It's like, damn, like, we've been at it like 10, 15 minutes now, this is nonstop. So,
There,
yeah.
there's always scenes like that, I think, in John Wick where like you're really getting up after all that, like
Yeah,
nothing happened. I'm like, I would be like dead, like "Ugh," like in a corner, like just in pain. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know.
for sure. Yeah, no, they could be beaten to a pulp, get in a car, drive like 5 hours, and then get
Yeah.
out of the car and still want to fight. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, no. Cramp up and, what are
Yeah.
you eating? A banana and some water on the way, some
Yeah.
electrolytes. So, yeah, love to see that with Ballerina. 25 mil, I'll take that for,
Hmm.
my fourth rounder there. Materialists moving into that film. 12 mil, kind of a little shy of where I thought it was going to be, to be honest, because I've
Hmm.
seen just a ton of, meme videos on it, people going out to watch it. My theater was full,
Hmm.
premiere night when I went last Thursday. Um, and, to be honest with you, obviously we talked about this earlier, John. Trailers kind of creating more of a
Yeah.
scene of, rom-com. To be honest with you, I think I laughed at one or two scenes in the whole movie. Um, and the comedy, bright laughter, really wasn't there. It was more focused on, yeah, without me giving away much here, it was more focused on the life of a matchmaker.
Hmm.
And, it wasn't necessarily like, two steamy relationships, with Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans,
Yeah.
fighting for a girl. And um, one thing that a big deal, which is, before I saw any of the memes, shout out to my wife, Jen, for basically saying she's not falling for the broke romance. And and I was like, okay, yeah, I can kind of see that. It kind of feels like, the broke man, kind of wins the girl always.
Hmm.
But it happened in like The Notebook, for example.
Hmm.
Um, but people aren't really standing for that in 2025. And I feel like that
No.
trend might be coming to an end where it's like, yeah, go get that money. And, of course, when you have a guy like Pedro Pascal playing
Hmm.
that role, um, it's gonna turn some heads,
Yeah.
and I think that was pretty valid in this film. And kind of going along with the meme, I know you wanted me to kind of low-key explain, like the moves that the ladies are putting on, in the theaters for this film when it comes to Pedro Pascal. And I
Yeah.
think it's for that exact reason of, going for the rich man love. And, of course, when it's a guy, like Pedro Pascal, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I haven't seen this movie. I've seen all the memes because I think it's just been popping up after, I think it was like Sunday when I started seeing a lot of this. I'm like, okay,
Yep.
everybody must be watching this. They had their date night Saturday before Father's Day because I know they can't, the ladies can't take fathers to go watch this movie because we don't want to go watch this movie.
Right.
We'd rather go watch Ballerina,
Uh-huh.
so. But yeah, I think that trend of the broke, broke boyfriend, it's going away, and we see it everywhere. And like I say, I'm not trying to say like they shouldn't. because from what I'm getting from the movie, it's like Chris Evans' character couldn't even pay like parking tickets, things like that. And it's like,
Hmm.
I understand why someone wouldn't want to stay in that type of relationship because it's not, you can't maintain a lifestyle, and especially in New York. And if you're a matchmaker that's supposed to have a higher lifestyle, like, how are you going to live with that when you're going to be taking care of someone? Whereas it seems like Pedro Pascal has the money. From what I'm hearing and seeing in these videos, was very short, got surgery, got taller. Am I
Yeah.
missing anything? Just from the
That
little bit of...
that's where I laughed the most was
Okay.
that scene, that reveal.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good
So,
twist because I've heard of that surgery before,
yeah.
and I've seen like kind of like low-key short film documentaries on it,
Oh,
and they're like
okay.
breaking your legs, dude. Like,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
what I
I
hear.
think each leg break, you get a couple inches, and I think you can go up to like 6 inches. It's outrageous.
That's insane.
And you know, um, uh, spoiler alert, Pedro got all the full 6 inches. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Oh,
it
6 inches.
was,
These
yeah,
ladies here are 6 inches. Are like, oh yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It just the way he kind of played out that scene was
Uh,
hilarious. I thought it was
yeah.
really funny. Um, but yeah, you're exactly right. Like, you have a matchmaker in New York who's, trying to pair, wealthy men with
Hmm.
women, and she's constantly talking to both, sides of a
Yeah.
relationship, and she's hearing about all these huge salaries, and then, for her to go home to a guy who's, like you said, can't even afford, he's worried about, the cost of parking in
Hmm.
downtown, it's going to cause arguments. So,
Hmm.
in 2025, I think everybody's image and visuals of things with how
Yeah.
much the world revolves around money,
Yeah.
it's going to change people's opinions these days.
Yeah, it's gonna change people's opinions, and like I said, I get it. I understand why a lot of females on TikTok, are making videos. Like, I don't buy into this. But also, like I say, there's this one level, and like I said, I'm not trying to get argumentative and stuff with females or anything, but
Careful.
like there's other levels where I've seen the videos on TikTok of, and you've probably seen it, where women are taken out on dates to Cheesecake Factory and they're pissed about it because it's not a fancy restaurant. And that's
Mhm.
where I'm sort of like, no, like, yes, Cheesecake isn't Mastro's, it isn't Larson's, things like that. It isn't this big steakhouse, but it's still not cheap to go out to eat nowadays. Like, going out to
Mm-mm.
eat anywhere, you're spending over 100 something bucks, and let's be honest, a lot of people are still not, living within that poverty line. So, finding someone that could still maintain to do that without having to worry about parking tickets, it's a whole different thing than, considering them broke boys, broke boyfriends as well. So that's just my little 2 cents with that. I hope it doesn't sort of play into like, oh, I need a man that's going to take me to Mastro's. Like, I don't think we have to worry about that. We're married, my wife,
Yeah,
we're good going anywhere. But like some of the single people, like, oh, now a movie like this might have women feel like, oh no, you got to take me to Mastro's. You got to take me to these expensive places where, some of them, like, they're not living Chris Evans, poverty line, but it's expensive to live out here nowadays.
absolutely. Yeah, and roommate situations are very
Hmm.
common now, and
Yeah.
not owning but renting, and it's all very common, and
Yeah.
yeah, cheesecake, honestly can be seen as bougie these days. It ain't that cheap.
That
It can
ain't.
be pricey.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, obviously, like you said, it's not something we worry about these days, but it's something very common in the dating game, and clearly we
Mhm.
see where the message is now,
Yeah.
based off of a lot of these meme videos, and not
Yeah.
meme videos, but just videos in general. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard out here for a single man nowadays.
yeah, seems that way,
It seems
right?
that way. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other movie I saw this weekend, How to Train Your Dragon. Like I said, trying to keep it as spoiler free as I can, especially if you're gonna watch it. Amazing movie. If you've seen the animated version, pretty much the same. And that's what, I didn't bring this up during that hot take of a trailer sort of deceit, uh, not accurate. This is exactly what we thought it is, and this is exactly what I think we all always pictured these animated to live action should be. Exactly the same story. Nothing changed. And like I say, I have nothing against changing a little bit of a story, but don't change the whole concept of the story. Snow White was completely changed. Um, that's something that wasn't part of that animated that a lot of people grew up with. I know from like the 60s, 70s, those messages aren't the same anymore. You can't really say it, but if you can't make a movie out of it, don't make it. But How to Train Your Dragon, director kept it the same. Few tweaks here and there, but nothing that I wasn't mad about. You know,
Nice.
really good. The sequences, just like the animation. The dragons were really cool. I know the one controversy, and I don't know if you saw it, was with the female like lead role, sort of,
Oh,
so in the cartoon or the animation, I'm not gonna say cartoon. In the animation, she's blonde with blue eyes, and people were mad that in the live action she wasn't blonde with blue eyes. But what I will say is the way they sort of changed up that story about the village made me feel okay with what they did.
mhm.
So for me, it was fine, because like I say, they changed the story up a little bit, but it still had the same concept of the animation that I fell in love with, when I saw it. So, um,
Right.
great movie. I think if you've seen the movie before and you liked it, you're gonna like this also.
That's good. I like, remakes of films, turning into, live action or just remakes in general. It's great that they kind of stick to it with
Hmm.
the storyline. Lilo and Stitch, for example, did get some
Hmm.
harsh criticism about the ending of it. I know that's still kind of a fresh film. I won't go too far into it, but
Yeah.
changing up films. I feel like just doesn't go over too well with the viewer, and they'd prefer
Hmm.
to stay the same if you're already going to make the change of, animation to live action kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
staying to that storyline, is enough. So,
Hmm.
that's definitely a movie I want to see,
Hmm.
How to Train Your Dragon. So, hopefully I can get to the theater this week, some
Yeah.
weekday here.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's a holiday weekend, so we'll see. Uh,
Hmm.
like I say, holiday weekend Thursday. So I feel like Elio could be a big hit. So I'm a little disappointed that didn't drop to me.
Let's go.
Because like I said, it's a cartoon movie. You got to take your kid to something. And
Yep,
if you already saw How to Train Your Dragon, Elio's next. So
absolutely.
yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. Like I say, I think if you want to show the kiddos the animated version first to sort of see how they like it could sort of help them like the live action.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
because yeah. And you can watch it on Peacock. We're not sponsored by Peacock, but we should be Peacock.
Uh-huh.
That you can see all
Yeah.
three movies.
That's great. Yep.
Yeah.
Shout out Peacock.
Shout out Peacock. But yeah, that's where we're at. So like I say, this week we have LEO, and then next week we have I think it's F1 coming out,
Yep.
and then we have I think it's either Megan 2.0 before the like Superman Fantastic Four. So and Jurassic World. So it's June's gonna be a busy month.
Hell of a lineup, man.
Yeah.
Love it.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be good. But yeah, that's the movie game. And then one topic I wanted to bring up to you, Tim, because I
Hmm.
saw it on TikTok today. And I was sort of gonna make it one of the banter takes, but I was like, I want to have this more as just a conversation. Not really a take or somewhat of a take, but
Sure.
for me, I saw this video and it sort of really hits home. But Gen X and millennials are the most immune to getting sick. And it's because we played a lot of drinking games that were very unsanitary. And the one video I saw was beer pong, where if it falls on
Okay.
the ground, you just grabbed it, did a little, it still shot it, got in the beer,
Sure.
and we'd still drink that beer. Where I think nowadays, it goes onto the grass. You got to sanitize it, all this other stuff, get a new ball. Like I don't
Yeah.
think they play the way we used to as when we were younger.
Right. Yeah, I think predominantly I grew up with, the water cup. But
Yeah.
again, like how sanitary is that water cup? It's
Yeah.
not mixed with like Dawn dish soap or anything. It's just straight water. And it's
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, that little splash of water totally
Yeah.
diluted it, and
Yeah.
no harm, no foul. And we grew up, obviously going to playgrounds, running around, then,
Yeah.
running over, eating lunch. Hand sanitizer wasn't anything, growing
No.
up. Like it was like you literally had to go wash your hands in the bathroom, maybe grab some wet ones if you had them.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
about it. But yeah, sanitizer did not was not around. So, or if it was like hardly used
Yeah.
in
It was a
just every
luxury
day.
back then.
It was a luxury. Yeah, or you have to work at a hospital for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's super valid. And you know, um, yeah, it just makes more sense. Like, hand washing was, obviously, they suggested, I should say. But yeah, beer pong, and then also what else kills germs better than like doing that mystery shot game where, you don't know what the hell you're gonna drink. And
Yeah.
I remember nights where I would end up having to take a shot of hot sauce.
Yeah.
Kills off all those germs that you know of
It does.
that you're ingesting. And yeah, it just
Yeah.
happens. But
It
no
just
harm, no
happens.
foul.
It's crazy because yeah, I saw that TikTok and I was like, that's so true because like you mentioned, we used water cups, but every time it fell, we'd always just splash it a little bit and then eventually we'd still play with the same water cup for 5 rounds and how much grass has gone in it, how much dirt's already in that water, and we're still just like, oh,
Yes.
it's clean. It's sanitary, even though there's all
Yeah,
this other stuff in there, and it's just like
it's great.
whenever it made it into the cup, we still drink that beer because I don't even think they do like cups with beer nowadays. I think they put water and then they're like, okay, I'm gonna drink half a beer. Or,
That's right. Yeah.
where we would fill the cups up with beer or alcohol, we
Yeah.
had those mystery shots and if it fell in there, we drink it that way, no matter how much dirt how little or too much dirt there was.
Yeah. Cause yeah, you gotta drink it on its way out of the game.
Yeah.
It's the only way, and they
Uh,
made sure that you use those red solo cups, filled it up to the line,
Yep.
and no harm, no foul. I think it's
Yeah.
perfect. Nothing ever
Yeah.
happened.
Every time you
Um,
fingered it too, like your hands have been everywhere.
right. Yeah. Right.
Oh,
Exactly. Yeah, you just trust the people you're playing with, and
yeah,
that's that.
yeah.
But those days I wouldn't trade them for anything. I was were, always fun, and very fond memories looking back at, nights
Hmm.
like that where we are playing beer pong with the fellas.
Yeah. Yeah,
Good stuff.
but I saw that. I was like, I wonder if Tim thinks the same because I feel like all these newer generations, they can't keep up with us. They think they know what beer pong is. They think they know all this stuff, and it's like, nah, we've been playing it, back in the streets before you guys had these regulations and how to keep it sanitary.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. It didn't even cross our minds. And then you're
Uh,
playing on like, a ping pong table that, probably is just riddled with dust. And
You
it's
just do a little one swipe. That's
yeah,
it.
right. A
Again,
quick little cleanup, making sure that
uh,
you get fair bounces when you need them.
yeah,
And that's that.
yeah.
And yeah,
It's
again,
crazy.
it's if you ingested a little bit of gravel or some grass petals
Mm,
with it,
It's okay.
it's just extra protein at that
Yeah,
point. Good
little
stuff.
seasoning on that beer.
Yeah, because for example, I grew up on like kind of like a hillside with, a bunch of woods and, just
Hmm.
crazy landscaping. I'd hike those hills all the time,
Yeah,
and then, it just, I'd grab shit that I probably shouldn't have,
yeah,
like I got poison oak a few times. Like,
yeah.
it's what it is.
It
Kids
is what
these
it
days
is.
are in the house watching TV or on their iPad or playing
Yeah,
video games, honestly. Um, yeah, it's just a remembrance of get outside, enjoy it, and
enjoy it.
just
Yeah.
if you're playing beer pong,
Yeah.
fill it up with beer. Don't do
Yeah.
water.
Yeah. Fill it up with beer. Like I say, we always use those nice watered down beers, natural ice, Coors
Mm,
Light, Bud Light. So the grass, the gravel, the dirt gave it a little bit of taste that we needed, to water it down.
It was needed, yeah. I just remember always waking up with the fattest headache
Oh
after
yeah.
those. Oh my God. Hey, like a 24 pack at the time was like what, 9.99 for Natty
Yeah.
Lights.
Oh yeah.
Um, Easy beer pong beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
That just why go more expensive?
Yeah. Don't be using the Coronas. Use that for the barbecues. Just hanging out.
Exactly. Exactly. You start with Ronas, then when you're playing games, you use Natties.
Use the natties, yeah. The Coors Light, the Bud Light.
Oh yeah, exactly. Anything light.
Yeah. Miller
That is the
Light.
water.
That's how
Yeah.
you hydrate. You don't get drunk for those.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why you're carrying a cup while
Yeah.
playing,
Yeah.
it's all natural. It's
It's
good.
natural. Yeah. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, I saw that. I was like, let me throw that question out to Tim. But yeah,
Good
like I
topic.
say, yeah. But yeah, that's the show for today. Like I say, there's a lot of stuff. We're gonna be coming up with more random topics like that because sports are gonna take a little bit of a break. I think there's a lot of wives, girlfriends out there that are sort of excited about this time of the year because not much
Yeah.
sports for us men to watch. So we gotta do other things. So we'll be talking about other things as well, as
Oh
they
yeah.
come. But yeah, thanks everybody listening, everybody that joined us on our TikTok live. We appreciate you with the likes, just stopping by, saying what's up. If you're listening to us on YouTube, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, uh, Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well. Hit that follow button, get the alerts when new episodes are out. And as always, leave those comments. We enjoy the engagement. We enjoy you guys talking with us, calling us out on some of our takes. It's part of what we do here at Banter on the Rocks.
Completely agree with that sentiment. And, we really love it when other people engage with each other too.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of that with some of our Baldoni content and
Yes.
lively content from this past week. So, good stuff as always. Really appreciate, each and every one of you stopping by, listening every single week.
Yeah.
Um, really appreciate it. Definitely goes
Yeah.
noticed, and we'll keep it up.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, everybody, and continue following us. Follow us on our socials, all our pages. We would appreciate that. And we'll see you guys next week.
Peace. Enjoy the movies.
Yes.